Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Unresolved Textual Tension. My name is Elin, and I am today's host. I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Katie and William.
Hey guys, what's up? And the book we're doing today was picked by our book club, and it is Wild Dark Shore by an author whose name Katie remembers.
You are so annoying like this. It's because you know I'm the worst person. It's by
McConaghy.
Charlotte McConaghy. Yes.
Okay, Charlotte McConaghy. Yeah, and this is a book, again, that I said was picked by our book club, and it's kind of very focused on environmentalism, and it's not speculative fiction in the way that we usually read it, though it takes place, I think, 5 minutes into the future is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Where the climate crisis is growing increasingly worse, but also isn't actually that much different than where we are now. And it centers on a family that live on some place where it's real cold on an island where they have the strategic
on an island
seed.
between Australia and Antarctica.
Yes. And it's a extremely well-known space because of how remote it is. And in this world, it's also very, I wouldn't say well-known, but it's very important because it contains a seed bank, one of the largest seed banks in the world. And if you don't know what a seed bank is basically a place where you store a whole bunch of seeds, like money in a bank, and it's for the future, so that way when inevitably we kill every single thing on this planet, we still have seeds to, bring back old
species.
Earth. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Resurrect the flora and the fauna so that the planet doesn't die. We actually have a rather large sea bank on Greenland.
Yeah, in Sweden.
No, it's in Norway technically. We gave away Norway and Svalbard at one point, which was a big mistake. But let's not get into that. Anyway,
don't get her started.
They have real seed banks
on her Scandinavian supremacist views.
I would love to hear more about this at another time, actually.
Don't get her started on Denmark.
I would love to actually, because I know nothing about the politics between these places. But anyway, that being said, that is what our place is. It is a real island. At the end, there is a special section dedicated to explaining the biological and, in general, importance of this island, and which I thought was quite cool. So really, if you love books that are discussing conservation, if you love books that are minded towards the loss and the tragedy that is our global change that is happening, both climate and otherwise, then this is a book for you. However, that being said, let me just also say, this is super tragedious.
Well, I should also break in that if you like books that are good, maybe don't read this one.
No. Will's being unkind.
Me?
Shh.
Perish the thought.
Shh. The point is that this book is actually, I would just like to say three things. That's it. Very short. Hush.
Not the
number
German
one.
three?
I already stated my first one. Oh yeah, that's true. Inglorious Bastards, I forgot. But anyway, the point is number one, I already stated my first one, conservation stuff. Number two, is that it is a romance at the end of the day, and the romance, I think, is the least interesting part of this, even though it is really hard-hitting in some places, and you're like, oh man, yeah, that's great. But at the same time, it really wasn't built up that great, because it's really not, even though it seems to be a really huge genre mediator for what is being said and done in the book, it's really not, really not the soul of the book. The soul of the book is conservation and family. And then finally, the last thing is that it is a pretty solid book. The problem is that I think the pacing is completely off, and I think it should have been about 4 hours shorter, which is wild because it's already 9 hours. What I mean is it's only 9 hours long on audiobook. So to cut it down by 4, I really think this should have been a short story, not a novel. It's because there's so much repeated information. Because at one point I was like, oh, come on. And I actually listened to the whole book at normal speed. But then I got to a point where I was like, I'm done with this. I want to know what happens. This is a good mystery. There's a good mystery in this book. If anything, this book is conservation and mystery. And what family is for like a wholesome family, like Hallmark movie, if you know what that means, for my American people. Or people that watch Hallmark, I guess, in other countries, but I find like I don't think that's probably many. But yeah, like it's just there's a lot of repeated information and the pacing's off, and I'm just like, oh my god, did we have to have Orly's descriptions of the seeds all those times for so often? Even though it's cute. That's it for me. That's my feedback.
So I'll say very quickly that the little bit more expanded plot version of this is that there's a family living on this island, and a woman washes up on shore looking for her husband. We figure out pretty quickly in the novel who used to work there but doesn't, and like, oh, what happened to him? And is the family hiding a secret? Before I jump into my thoughts, though, what were your thoughts, Ellen?
What? How can you segue me like this?
I'm being gentlemanly. I want to give everyone an ability to talk first.
Dislocated my brain. For transparency's sake, I would like to say that this is the second book I've read by this author, and the first one I picked up purely because it was very random. I didn't even read the synopsis before, and I happen to love that book because it's called Once There Were Wolves, and that one is also a lot about ecology, and it's about a scientific project of reintroducing wolves into Scotland, where they have been extinct for several hundred years. And that one also had a little mystery tying things together. And compared to that book, this one really doesn't deliver. This is very much a rehash of that book, except the mystery is less compelling and more distracting. And there is simply too much focus on yucky men for my taste. That's all.
Yucky man. I was like, who's yucky man?
I know. Shut up, Will, because I thought that.
I was like, what? No, yeah, yucky man. I feel like, okay, so this book is, some people have said that like this in our Discord suffers from the too many things problem. I actually feel like this book suffers from just not, I think Katie's right. I think this should have been a short story, and this would actually be quite a good short story, because the book gets stuck in loops of nothing really happening that much. The writer is clearly very talented, but she also does this thing where characters, every thought they have has to relate back to their personal philosophy and view on life. Me and Ellen did The Devils. We read that, and we're going to be doing a video on it tomorrow, actually. And I find that Abercrombie kind of has a similar problem, but it's worse there because that book is 20 hours long. I know. It's going to be a pistolas. It's going to be a cross. It's gonna be a Pope Stolas.
That means it's gonna be a really great video.
It's gonna be an epic battle.
Yeah. And so, but in this book, it's like that. Like everything that happens is the most something that's happened. Like at one point, two characters have sex and they talk about like, oh, and it was completing, and then the body, and then, you know, it was like this, that. And I'm like, you guys are both stinky because you haven't taken showers. It's cold. Both of you have major injuries right now. This would feel so much more genuine if this was like not the like most soul-searing experience. And that kind of extends to a lot of small moments, even where she's like, she held the, you know, like Orly, the young kid's hand, and it was like her child, her whatever, had whatever. And I'm like, oh,
so it's funny that Will says all this, because it actually occurred to me, I kid you not, yesterday on the way to work, I was listening to the description from it was Dom's perspective when we introduced the characters, Dom's perspective. And it's the one thing you're going to notice in this book if you read it is that every perspective is poetic. And the thing is I thought to myself, Dom wouldn't speak like this. Now that I think about this,
no, Dom is a lump of coal.
Yes, exactly. And so I thought, this is not Dom's narration. This is the author narrating Dom's perspective. And I thought to myself, well, that's not very good characterization. You know, like, I'm not getting Dom's personality through this. I'm getting a beautified version of it. And then I thought to myself, wait, but can't that be okay if it's consistent in the novel? And can't you say that, like, we can give different characters, but give, like, a philosophized version of, like, their more internal spiritual selves? Can't we be given that? And it be an introduction to, like, what the truth of these different kinds of characters could be? And I think that in and of itself would have been something to explore for the author, but I don't think she...
No, because all of them are the same.
Yeah,
like, if that was simply a Dom thing, where he is outwards like man bashes rock onto nail, and inwards he is this poetic, deep soul who has come to realize the error of his ways and how he kind of internally struggles to manifest his higher intellect in the real world, because now it's just impactful. Like he is eulogizing and thinking about everything he's done wrong and how wise he is, and then in real life he acts like a turnip.
But the thing that,
no, you go ahead, and go ahead.
The problem with that is then, so that's my feeling, right? Like, I like that writing style, so of course I'm like quite empathetic towards it. But that being said, like, if you don't get that other, like, I get it through what is told to me and through other characters' perspectives, but every time we get Dom, again, the same internal voice is the same, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the problem is then the characters become less, like, slightly less distinct from one another, and it's like the whole point. Okay, this is my problem. Okay, I figured it out. If you're gonna switch perspectives, third person limited, from character to character to character, the reason why you would want to do that is so that way you could have the different tones from each of the characters and their perception of what reality is in the story being told. But the problem is it's consistent. They're all third person limited chapters where you get from character to character, so you don't get those special flavors. I mean, you do to some extent, but it's very limited, and so she's limiting herself by making it the same narrative tone in each chapter. And so the whole purpose of doing the style that she did throughout the whole book, she's like limiting herself at the same exact time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's actually funny because it leads to a problem, which is have either of you guys played the new Wolfenstein games?
I watched gameplay.
Okay, so the main character in that is a Neanderthal, BJ Blazkowicz.
Yes.
But in his narration internally when you're playing the game, he has this incredibly like rumbling deep voice, and he says very poetic things about what's going on that he doesn't in dialogue. And I love that. I think it's the funniest thing.
That's like because it's first person and it's funny that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it fits the pulpy tone that the game is going for, of like this kind of poetic Neanderthal. And Dom's voice, the voice actor here, is so deep that I had that same kind of, that's so funny that this like Neanderthal is spouting poetry, but that's not what the author wants you to think about Dom. That's not supposed to be funny or pulpy. Like, and so you're correct that his narrative voice, his internal narrative voice, and he's the father of the group, we should say, does not match what he actually acts like or really should think like. And there's an extent to which all of the characters do this to an extent. Like even the children have a very like a poetic way of thinking. And the thing is, yeah, the problem is that if one character has this view, if you have one character viewpoint and your narrative voice is one way, people will automatically assume that's the character voice. But if you have multiple characters like that, it makes it feel like it kind of pulls back the curtain, is like, oh no, these are all being puppeteered by the same person. And like that kind of makes it feel less real. And in the case of Dom, it makes it kind of ridiculous.
That is a good point. In her other book that I liked a lot better, there is only one single narrating character, and it works so much better there because it feels like one person bearing their soul in a time of extremity, and it's much more powerful than it becomes here because we have a whole slew of characters that are
bearing their souls, but in the same way and the same style, so it doesn't feel like it's actually bearing the soul.
Time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was, I think, and we'll get, I think, more into the problems as we go deeper into the plot, because we should probably give the premise,
Yes.
which is pretty simply, like we said, there's this island with the seed bank on it, and it has this family, which is Dom, the dad, the wife died, or the mother,
Claire,
died, and he like couldn't deal with the trauma, so that's why they're on an island in the middle of nowhere, and he has 3 children. He has the oldest, which is Finn, which is a girl who now lives kind of farther away from the family, and everyone is like, oh, I don't know why.
I think Finn is technically the second oldest, and the other one is the oldest.
Really?
But I could be wrong.
I can't remember. I thought she was the oldest, but you're right, maybe not. And then there's Rafe,
she is
who
17,
Raph.
and Raph is 19.
Like
Like he's a
19.
legal
Yeah.
adult.
Yes, which is important for later. Okay, so Raph is the oldest one, and he like something tragic happened with him, and the only way his father knows how to help him through his grief is to punch a bag. Toxic
Raph,
masculinity.
yes. Raph, violinist, love whales, a little gay probably. Sensitive, loves his family, very innocuous as far as a character goes because he could literally be erased from this and barely anything would change.
Well, they
two
might
good
not have
questions.
saved the whales.
True.
2 quick comments. Chris M says they just don't think like real people because there's a lot of flip-flopping depending on where the author wants the plot to go. One moment they're distrusting, the next they're best friends and horny. Yes, that is actually
exactly.
very much experience.
Yeah, that is a good
And then-
point.
Pink Synthetic says, it fits for Rowan, but everyone else less so. The book does feel a bit like it's Rowan's story, and I could see it feeling more purposeful if it was just in her perspective. Yeah, it should
Yes.
Authors do this a lot. They like to explore many perspectives, and it's not always good for the story.
It would have been
No.
best, honestly, the entire story would have been so much more impactful. And at the end, I probably would have cried if it was just Rowan's perspective.
And it would be shorter. Like a short story with these events from her perspective, I think is way more impactful.
I would have liked this a lot better if it was simply Rowan's story.
Agreed.
And then the last kid is
Orly.
Orly,
Orly.
who's like a young precocious child who like really likes seeds, and maybe he can hear the voices on the wind.
He's the poltergeist kid. He's the kid that's open. It's because he's sensitive. He empathizes with the animals and stuff like that. And he's like the wild child. So, and we kind of skipped over Finn. Finn is the girl, the surfer chick girl who has long blonde hair and dreads because she's in the saltwater so much.
Yeah.
And
She loves the seals.
She loves the seals. She actually knows them so well, and they know her so well that even wild seals, which is wild to me, are just like, oh, it's you. And that does bring a bit of magic to it, which I do like, honestly. She doesn't live in the lighthouse. She refuses to live there, and her dad isn't being a dad in this moment, so she lives in a fucking boathouse.
That's on her. That's not his fault.
I have feelings on that, but that's fine. That's neither here nor there. That's just like weird child abuse. And so you have 3 children. Orly is the youngest. He's probably like, how old is he again? He's like 9, 10, 11,
9,
12.
yeah.
Yeah, 9. I would say he's no older than 10. Finn, 17, 18. Raph, now 19, 20-ish. And then you have Dom, lighthouse keeper. And you've got Rowan. Who is Rowan?
Rowan is a woman who washes up on shore one day. It should be said again that this place used to have a contingent of scientists there, about 20 of them, and one of them was her husband. This is discovered like I'd say like a fifth of the way through the book, so it's not super spoilery.
It's not.
But it is pretty much. And honestly, I wish it had been discovered beforehand because I was like, that was the moment I kind of clicked into like caring about the plot.
Also, at this point, like, you're going to get spoilers, guys. If you don't want it, leave now.
Yeah, that's true.
But that being said, also, I feel like, as a side note, if it was just from Rowan's perspective, I would have liked... There's a big reason for this. We should have started several hours earlier than we did in the book, where she is on the ship with the old dude that she had an emotional connection with, that... Again, spoilers, he is dead. And we should have started the book with her trying to hitch a ride with somebody that was willing to bring her to this super remote, crazy island in a storm that's coming up. Because the reason I say this, and I'll just make it short, there's supposed to be an emotional twang that happens when you find out that this old dude that was really empathetic to her dies because she asked him to go out in a storm, and it doesn't hit. Obviously, because we have no idea who this dude is, and we never got a scene with him, and there's like a million perspectives.
Yeah.
Right away in the book, the author tries to play both sides in order to craft the mystery. So they try to keep it a mystery why Rowan is there, and they try to keep it a mystery of what has happened to the island and why Dom is such a fuck up. And these two mysteries kind of take each other out for a long time, which kind of goes back to what you said, Katie. It would be a lot more anchoring if we started with Rowan trying to hitch a ride and just revealing why she is at this island. Like, we're going to find out really soon anyway. And we would still have the tension of her not immediately revealing why she has come to the island to the salt, because she is thinking something untoward might have happened to him.
The salts, by the way, are the family.
The salts, yes.
Ironic name. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it felt like the author just wanted to get him out of the way. I was like, oh shit, she can't have gotten there on her own. So we need a character, but I don't actually want to write him. So he died on the way there, and we're not going to address it. It is a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity.
It's not just that, but it's also lingered on in two places where I'm just kind of like, I mean, it's not so obviously done so where you're like, oh, this should have been a character, but it's also, at the same time, it's like, why did you even bring that up? Why did we even have a scene of this in this moment? And it's to provide more tension for the mystery of being able to contact the outside world or whatever. But it's so forgettable that even one of our commentators said, yeah, I forgot about this moment, so I didn't critique it. And wow. And so, and that's Dragon Slayer 19. But I'm just like, yeah. Why? Anyway, it's fine. Again, one of my biggest things on this novel is that there's wasted white space.
Yeah. So Thea had they're a little bit behind, but they said, but that's Litfic talking about kind of the style of it. That Litfic has a lot of repeated info and poetic language. Yeah, that's why I don't like Litfic. Get to the point. Don't waste my time.
Not always. I would like to say, like the really good authors, they know what they're doing, and they're using the language in order to heighten and talk more about their themes. I
actually didn't find the prose in this particularly beautiful. Like, we've read some books that have like really beautiful prose, and these I just felt like were nice, but I didn't feel they were beautiful.
Nice. I think what gives it the pretentious kind of vibe is all the talk about
reflection,
nature as if it's a living thing, and people also feeling deeply connected to the world around them and sitting down and reflecting a lot about what they have done and how they feel and why they feel this way. That's what is giving the feeling of this being super poetic.
And to what Willa just said just a moment ago, to that, Hemingway is Litfic. But let me tell you, he doesn't waste space in most places.
No.
I think, though, that Litfic as a genre is more of what Thea's talking about, and as a genre modernly that people put entries into, it has kind of evolved into that.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're correct. We read Hemingway
Feels
for
like
one of our
elephants.
critique streams. You guys can get that. That's where me and Katie look at the micro view of like prose and how do those achieve what the author wants. It's actually one of our better episodes. Feels like White Elephants, quite a good one. That's the one where I trolled Ellen by saying that Hemingway was not a well-known author in America.
I thought we'd agreed never to talk about that again.
Wait. Wait,
don't
you
remember
said
this?
that to her, and she was like,
She said,
"Oh
she was
wow,
like,
didn't you
here
know?"
in Sweden, here in Sweden and in England, he's quite well known.
Shut
And I was
up,
like,
he's such a
nobody knows him here.
butthole.
I thought it would just be stupid. Like, it would just be like stupid Americans to be like, oh,
Yeah,
who's that?
no, it would.
Who's that dude who literally kind of changed literature
You're
for his
such
time?
You're such a butthole. Like, that is really funny, and if I was clever enough and mean enough, I would do it too. But
Well, I didn't do
That
it
was
originally
the
on
most-
purpose.
That was the most buttholey thing you've ever done.
I didn't do it on purpose. Originally, I just said it as like a joke, and then you were like, "Oh, he's actually well known here," and I was like, "It'd be funny if I kept playing it." Anyway, yeah, his prose are very clean. They're almost more clean than they are poetic, but they still really hit where they need to. But anyway, getting back to the plot a little bit. This woman whose name is Rowan. What's your thought?
The book starts off on a dark, stormy night. And it starts off with the power going out up in the lighthouse where they live, the Salts. So they're heading down to see what's going on. They're kind of try to hunkering down to get through the storm. And Fern spots the wreck and the body of a woman. And she swims out in the middle of this storm amongst these jagged rocks. She swims out and she fetches the woman back, and she's all bashed up and bleeding and bruised and unconscious. And so they take her up to the lighthouse and they strip her bare, and she's hypothermic, so Fern uses her own body to heat her up, like she lies next to her for hours. And they bandage her up, and they're basically thinking, like, what possessed someone to head to this island in this weather? And also, why did they come here? Because there is no reason for anyone to come this way.
So, just like Elin, I didn't actually read a synopsis of this. So when this happened, I actually thought she was a Selkie, and we were in Scotland.
That would have been so much better.
And I thought she was going to be a mythical figure, and that's literally what I thought was going to happen. And I was kind of upset that we didn't have more imagery or allusions to those kinds of things.
You were thinking that we are going to do kind of The Shape of Water, but in Scotland.
Wait, there's a horrible Irish, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's an American film.
Racist.
It's killing me that I can't think of the name of it, but it was so disappointing. It was a horrible film.
I saw one with
okay,
a tall
calm down.
woman played by that witch lady who plays the White Witch in The Wizard and the Wardrobe.
Yes. Yeah. What's her name?
Tilda Swinton.
Yep, there you go. Good job. My favorite role of hers is when she plays Gabriel in Constantine.
Oh
That
yeah,
is
it's so good. Anyway. Okay.
Anyway, yes. So, woman drops up on shore. They're all like, "How did she get here?" Like I said, like 3 times, but I don't know if I ever finished the thought. There used to be researchers on the island, one of whom was her husband. But he had been getting increasingly erratic, and he had sent her some emails being like, "Come help me. I don't know what to do. Something." And we figured this out later, but again, about a fifth of the way through the book, but it's part of the setup. And so Dom and his kids helped take care of her. And this was about the point where I realized the accents are so strong in this book, I'm going to have to drop down the speed because I can't quite understand what they're saying. So that was... They have strong accents in this book. And I was like, okay, I got to slow it down a little bit. And I'm playing...
Yes, they do.
They don't really.
My dogs are barking in the background, so I was like, let me mute myself. But no, they have such strong accents. I thought Orly's name was Ollie. And so
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he says Ollie. And I'm like, oh,
Orly.
it's Orly based on, because I don't remember what I looked at. I think I looked at, that's right. I just looked at the title of the chapters and I was like, oh, it's spelt O-R-L-Y, not O-L-L-Y or O-L-L-I-E. And so anyway, Rowan's job was construction work, Zira. She no, not just a carpenter, but probably because she loves carpentry work, or she's like loves the smell of it. She was
Construction.
she
They
was
had
in
a specific
construction.
word for it that was like Australian slang that I blank on.
No, it wasn't. She just said construction.
No, and then he said you or a, and that it was a slang
chippy.
word. And-
Yeah. And Chris said, chippy.
Oh, a chippy.
Oh, chippy. Oh, it's a bloody chippy, ain't she?
Stop it!
Oh,
What? I thought you said they didn't have strong accents. I was just saying it like they do in the book.
No, that is not. It's not. It's not even a funny joke.
She's going so high, she's blipping off.
It's a little funny. It's a little funny.
Bad.
We've barely gotten to the book, guys. Okay, so anyway,
Sorry.
she gets washed up upon shore. She wakes up. She's like, "Oh, where am I? Trauma." And please continue from there, guys.
I actually have trouble remembering what happens next.
Oh, well,
Part of
then
it
I
is
can
that this
continue
book,
unless-
this book, we're gonna have a little trouble with the plot because not necessarily a ton happens in terms of events.
We're
but
just
I
gonna
think-
summarize
I
it.
think that Ellen here remembers, so I'll let her do it. Also, Katie, I think you need to turn your volume down a little bit because I can hear myself when I get loud.
It's so quiet.
How about
Okay,
you
maybe
just
not then.
don't get loud then?
I'll just sit farther back until.
Do you see what wokeness has wrought? Oh, men can't get loud now. Oh,
Shut up. Wait.
next
can
you're gonna
you
be
hear
like, close your legs. Yeah, I can hear you.
me? So
I can
you
hear myself
like-
too, but it's okay. If
Wait,
I'm
can
the
you
only one
really
who's
from
hearing
here?
it, it's. I can hear myself. Yeah.
I want you to look real quick.
Okay, but
God,
make
the
sure
mic
that
is
you're
here.
all covered up.
Yeah, no, I am. I
Well,
don't know why. I
the
did
problem
this.
is that it's a proximity issue. The sound is coming from here, and the sound it needs to catch is from here, and like 4 inches just is not that large a space.
No, it's not 4 inches. I'm like
No,
a foot
I'm
away.
saying the for your microphone to catch
Obviously,
your
Will
voice.
thinks like less inches is more
I
inches
can actually
because
hear
of
you too
dick
now.
jokes.
The way.
But that's
Huh?
just
Oh,
because
fine.
you are incredibly loud.
Okay, what's happening, Katie, is that
I'm turning
to
it down.
catch your voice, the microphone is trying to catch where your mouth is, but it's also catching where your ear is because this is where my voice is coming from,
Can you
and
hear
it's not that
yourself?
far.
Please,
hear
please
yourself?
explain how technology works.
She
to
was
us.
saying that it had to do with how close she was to the microphone, and it doesn't have to do. As long if the microphone can hear your voice, it's going to be able to hear what's in your
Can
ear.
I please talk
That's-
about the plot now?
Wait.
Fine.
Before we do, can you hear yourself now?
No, not right now. I don't think.
Okay.
Actually, yes, I can.
What?
It's okay. If I'm the only one who hears it, it's fine. Go ahead, Ellen.
The plot. She is unconscious for a couple of days, and then Rowan wakes up, and she is banged up. She's confused. She's in pain. She's kind of scared to look at her own body to see, all the bandages and like what has happened to me. And the last thing she remembers is the storm. And one of her first thoughts is of what happened to, I can't remember the name. I'm terrible with names. She
Hank?
says the name of the man who drove boat.
the captain. I also don't
Laurie?
remember his name.
Laurie. I think it was Laurie. She's
Terry?
like, what happened with Laurie? And she, she's hungry. I think she gets up and she's not very steady on her feet. And
No,
she comes
and she
across
has, like,
Orly.
Yeah. Orly's like in the room with her, and he's been like talking to her about scenes and stuff, and that's what she wakes up to. And then she's like,
Thanks, guys.
and then
I
she
thought
gets
it was
up.
Asian sounding.
And then she gets up and she's like, where's the bathroom? But she's really out of it. And so she goes downstairs and she just goes straight out into the snow and takes a pee in the snow. And Orly's watching her and she's like, kid, I'm trying to like pee. And he's like, oh, because he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, what does it look like I'm doing? And he's like, we have a bathroom. And she's just like, shut up. And so she pees in the snow, which is that does make sense. Like, she doesn't know where she's at. She's probably all like, and I remember at some point she's like, hey kid, like, do you guys have any liquor? Because she's in so much pain and they didn't give her like any painkillers or anything. And he's like, yeah, but we're not supposed to use it for drinking. And she's like, I don't care. I'll take the blame. Give me the. So she drinks a whole bunch of vodka, so she gets drunk. Which I would do that too. So that was pretty fair. And anyway, she collapses in the snow. He sits with her, and then she's like, okay, I guess we got to get up. And so they go back in. Point is, though, is that you get a whole bunch. So I think it would be just simple to say you get a whole bunch of perspectives, and some of them are at the same time. And so to be concise, we're probably going to go through the plot in general. So from here, what happens is basically she gets introduced to each of the characters. She like is all out of it, and she gets bathed by Finn. Finn is the girl again, and the girl daughter person, and she goes from person to person. She has memories, and finally she wakes up at some point. She's very, very suspicious of the family. It's because the family immediately seems like very like kind of like alienated from her, like, you know, obviously, like, and she's just like, aren't there scientists here? And they're like, no, there are no scientists here. They left, or there were issues. And she's like, can we like call a ship? It's because like shoot, the captain of my ship is probably dead. We went under. We should probably call somebody. And they're like, yeah, we have no communication. She's like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way you guys don't have any communications. And they're like, no. Somebody sabotaged them / I don't know if they reveal that at this point, but they're like, yeah, no, everything's under. We have no power. Nothing. And so slowly but surely you're introduced to each of the characters. Again, Finn doesn't live in the house. She lives out with the seals. She's a wild child. She's really good at swimming. Raph, he's trying to reconnect the family with one another. He loves violin, but he doesn't play it because something tragic happened. Orly is obviously like looking for a mom and is attaching himself to Rowan. And of course, Dom is we have to live by a military code. It's because we live in the middle of nowhere and our survival, it depends on control. And so from there, basically what ends up happening is that each of the characters introduce her to the environment, and we get her getting to know the lay of the land. The next big scene that really happens that I remember is that Dom and Orly both bring her to the seed bank where her husband worked, because she was like, my husband was here. His name was Hank. And they're like, oh yeah, Hank, he's not here anymore. And she's like, what do you mean he's not here anymore? He's my husband. If he had left, he would have told me he had left. And you don't know at this point that he sent emails like, I'm in danger, help. So he's like, she tells them, if my husband left, he would have come back to me. He's not back to me, so he must be here. So what aren't you telling me? And so they bring her to the seed vault. She sees the seed vault, and the seed vault is like this. It's in a cave, and we're introduced to the idea that all the seal hunters and all the hunters that like killed a whole bunch of animals here in horrible ways for oil and such, and just in meat or whatever, left behind remnants of themselves, and they're the ghosts of the animals and the ghosts of the people, and environmentalism, which I'm not negating. Like, I am haunted by this as well. But the point is it's very contrived in some places. And they get to the seed vault, and she's like, oh, wow, like, it's flooding. And Dom's like, yeah, we had a really bad storm. Everything's flooding. Global warming. We can't live here much longer. We have about, like, what is it, like 4 months or 3 months or something, and we're getting picked up with all the seeds that we can carry because we've been told that we don't have enough time. Which, my first issue, and then you guys can pick up where I left off. My first issue, they're saying that the seed bank is going underwater, and then it must be transferred to a new location. I am very, very sorry, but if that were the case and it were so important, the government / anybody / any organizations would have sent out a whole ream of people, of 40, 50, 60 volunteers, surely, and they would have gotten the seeds that they spent probably millions of dollars transferring to this island. Like, it was an investment. That's money. People care about money. Would they not have sent out people to go get the seeds out and prioritize that?
Yeah, it doesn't.
The book is kind of asking us to believe that there was a planned move of the seeds because of global warming and changes, and moving this amount of seeds to a new location and keeping them under the right freezing it'll take a little time, and we are asked to believe that no one knew about this concrete cancer that Rowan almost immediately discovers in the vault, which shortens the timeline they have to act in order to save the seeds by considerate amounts.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's one of these things where, like, if you don't think about it too much, it kind of like is like, okay, you kind of accept the premise of it, and it's kind of what the author is trying to say about, like, because this is where we get into like the environmental themes of the book, which is that the world is like falling apart, and like Rowan, we figure out, didn't want kids because she thought like, oh no, what are we bringing them into? We're bringing them into such despair. And we'll also learn that there was a very traumatic fire that ate her house, that she will not shut the fuck up about. Calm down. And we, this is one of those aspects that like, oh, it's all dying. And to be honest, we'll talk more about it as we go, but I didn't find the environmental messages in this book particularly interesting, because it literally was just like, the world is dying, that's bad, but from the fire comes something new. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it's
Well, that is literally what I said to you. That is not what the book said.
I think it's what the book says. The book explicitly has a part where it talks about flowers coming from fire.
Well, it's true, they do. There's a whole bunch of seeds that need the heat in order to even activate.
But the book doesn't even address that. The book doesn't even like discuss that at any length where it's like a theme or motif. Like, so it's something that you could like Elin is saying, like you could grab that from there from your pre-existing knowledge. But the author does not do, I would not say that she focused enough on it where that's like a wonderful theme that comes out of the book. Although it should be, certainly, considering there's a giant fire, and from that she feels desolate, but there is growth from that desolation.
Yeah, I think we kind of dropped the ball when we only referred to the super fire that burned down half of Australia like once. And that is part of what destroyed Rowan's home. And the fires and the melting of the snow caps in the Antarctic, like it's all connected to global warming. But I do think that we kind of jumble the themes in tying them together. Yes, the message isn't clear enough, and it's asking a lot of mental labor from the reader in order to pull it out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's a good point, is that I found this book to be pretty incomprehensible, and the only sustainable reading I found was, from the fire comes new life. But you're correct that it's not actually that well in the book. It kind of has to be put together a little bit, and it also just... in general, I find, and not necessarily that the book says this or not, but like I find that point of view very irritating when it comes to global warming.
Agreed.
Because this is not a fire. Nothing's coming out of this except the raccoons and roaches. This is not a natural
fire. This is a man-made fire that eats everything.
Well, and also, people don't understand, it's not like, society will adapt in certain ways. There are going to be large portions of the globe where you're just going to die from heat exhaustion because the humidity is too high. That's not a thing you adapt to.
I think one of the problems is that so many large areas are going to be uninhabitable that people are going to clump together even more than we do now. And the little land that is habitable will be completely overloaded, which will lead to famines, starvation, mass pandemics.
Blade Runner. It's going to be Blade Runner.
Yeah, and I think that actually almost is more of an interesting theme of how do we treat each other when the environment squeezes us together in a way that's going to cause strife that is caused by the environment, not necessarily by any inherent problems between us, even though we might think of it that way.
I'd say the book isn't really about this, though, and that is part of the problem. But why? It's more like a backdrop, like, oh my god, the world is burning and flooding, and we're all gonna die.
Wait, I want to pause. Elin, did you say you didn't watch Blade Runner?
I didn't.
Can we watch it together?
Yeah.
I would love to watch that with you because you're one of the few people that I would love hearing the feedback from.
Cool.
Do you mean 2049 or the original Blade Runner?
2049, obviously, because the original one's not that great, honestly. But
oh my God! Like Tears in the Rain. I
up,
have
that's
seen
so
gunships
garbage.
of fire off the moons of
As a
Saturn.
film
Which one
major?
is Mila Jovovich
Century.
naked? Is the 2049?
That's not that.
It's not that.
It's fine.
2049 has Ana de Armas though being a very cute trad wife robot.
Yes.
So.
Point is, though, real quick, we do have to watch the original one at least a little bit for you to get the references for it to be really meaningful. But the point is, which is unfortunate.
Yes,
but the point
we'll do
is,
a movie night. We'll do a
yes,
movie night
please.
for the patrons.
Oh, I would love to watch it with Will and you. Oh my God. But anyway, point is, actually, Blade Runner 2049 is literally one of my favorite movies ever made on this earth. Anyway, that point being now shoved aside. So anyway, the point is in plot, right? We're given the seed bank. We see the seed bank. We're like, wow, this is a big problem. There were like barely 7 scientists that were supposed to be moving.
Yeah.
And then Hank's. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then
the book
Hank,
gives you this, this seed bank is incriminate in keeping certain species alive. They have such rare, super rare seeds, like the last few in the world existing in this seed bank. And there was supposed to be 3 scientists and a numpty with 3 kids watching over it. And it just doesn't entirely make sense
insane.
right away.
Now, I could have believed that if some reference or some, and it didn't have to be explored, I'm not saying that I needed a research paper written, but if some type of reference to the lack of funding and that there was a focus that was not on in conservation, but
Yeah, maybe they had funding, but the funding had been cut.
something like that. But the problem, and this has to do with world building, the problem with that is that our characters are all super like, we love the environment. And I don't mean to say it goofily, but that is kind of like the obsessive like nature of it. They all are very poetic.
Hyper-aware.
Yes. And so you must assume, as a reader, not given any other part of this world, that everybody must be like that then. Because these are all very, I mean, we have a family, we have scientists, and we have this random woman. And that's all we have. And there's no reference to the fact that, oh, meanwhile, there are wars going on, or meanwhile, there are political issues going on, or whatever. And again, no research paper needed for this. But in order for the believability for me to be like, oh, yeah, this feels like horrid, these people are being ignored, but that doesn't make any sense. Again, the money invested in the seed bank is money. Whether it's the government or a private organization or something, unless something has been tragically cut, there is no sense why, if everybody is so environmentally minded, that this is not being given priority in some way, especially considering that there is supposedly a big naval ship coming at the end of the story to come collect the seeds. I'm like, okay, so then where's the military helping move these seeds? Where's anything helping move these seeds? No, nobody is there. And the fact that apparently they've been out of communications for a while, it's like, oh, surely if we are in 5 minutes from the future from now, there are systems in place where it's like, oh, wow, we haven't been given communications. We should go check out on these places.
Yeah, it's also weird there's no satellite phone.
They should be required to check in like every day, every week or something. And if communication ceases, this is simply too important to leave it just a few months and then just show up on schedule.
Yeah, and the thing is, you could make the argument that, like, they thought, because 3 of the scientists who stay behind die to help the Dom and his family pack the seeds. But it's explicitly stated that before this, Rowan's husband had been told you have to cut half the seeds. Only half the seeds are going to be moved. And so, like, this is an explicit thing that they decide to do. But then also, Navy ships aren't cheap to drive places. So it's, like, kind of weird that they were like, some of the seeds, but not all of them. And then we're going to spend all this money moving half of them anyway. So, and the other thing is, like, there are other seed banks. So it's kind of weird that they don't talk about, like, oh, this isn't the last one. Like Ellen was saying, there's one in Norway.
For those of you that might be like, oh, well, they don't need to focus on that. That's not the focus of the story. No, but it is. That is a massive focus. That is a massive driving aspect of the story. It is not the romance. It is the family,
and it's fundamental to our setting and why we're here, and most importantly, why these people are here. And we are very much asked to believe that this is something that is happening. And if you cannot accept this premise, then there is no way that you're going to stomach this book and be like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, very much so. So basically the things we need to talk about is that slowly Rowan starts to be like, oh, did they kill my husband? Because they say my husband left on a ship, but he would have told me that. And then at one point she sees that they're hiding his passport. And when she confronts Dom about it, he's like, yeah, he wasn't doing well towards the end, so he just left it because he was being a crazy person. And we find out that, like, he was being kind of
sus as fuck.
And this whole thing is, a conflict because she's really falling in love with Dom the whole time, and she loves the kids.
No, Will is being sarcastic because out of nowhere, like a like if you ever watched all that and you ever watched Amanda Bynes, which this is a very specific reference, but basically it's a comedian that's just like tells a knock knock joke, like knock knock who's there, and slaps you in the face with a fish. At one point, that's how it feels to get the romance in this book. It feels like a giant salmon slapping you in the face.
Yeah, I did not feel the attraction or the draw at all. I only felt the suspicion, and I did feel that she connected with the kids and that she got to know them. She cared. They had common interests. They empathized. But with Dom, it simply felt suspicious, vaguely antagonistic. Like she seemed to be bothered by his anally retentiveness, and and that maybe I'm conflating my emotions about Dom a little bit because I found him absolutely disgusting.
I found Dom to be a play pretend Barbie doll. Like he doesn't feel like he is the one character besides Orly, I would say the youngest son, and I would say him, are the two most unrealistic characters. There's something about the both of them. Well, I can tell you, how did you refill that? Do you have like a whole carafe next to you, Elin?
No.
What are you having, even? That looks so classy.
She has the bottle.
It's just outside
soda? Are you drinking soda?
It's just Coke.
It looks so fancy. It looks so European. Like,
I'm so dead. I am so dead
funny.
right now. But anyway, okay, wait a second. I need to process that for 5 seconds.
Okay, so I've often said that the romance in a book, the reader should always be chasing it a little bit. It
yes.
You always want the reader to want them to get together more than they actually are so far. Like you want it to chase it a little bit. And this one worked up to a certain extent, but then all of a sudden it jumps and like they're now more into each other than you are them being into them being together. For a long time,
I thought the conflict was going to be like, oh, she's going to try and save the kids from this father, and instead she suddenly wants to kiss him. And I'm like, what?
It literally,
you're literally suspecting that he did something very bad to your husband.
Yes,
but at the same time, you kind of want to, lick his.
There's literally a whole section where Raph, the eldest child, says, "And I know how those fists." Speaking of his father, literally early on, 1/4 through the book, to give you that bit of mystery, like clue of what might have happened. Raph literally thinks to himself, and he knew how violent those fists could get. And I was like, oh shit, that's heavy as hell.
And I was getting real bad vibes as well from Dominic.
Yes. And the thing is that's really irritating, like Elin said, like literally halfway through the book, not at all before then, out of nowhere, Rowan's like, and then I thought what that beard might feel like on my cheek. And then and then it switches perspective at some point to Dom, and Dom's like, and I wonder what it would be like to taste that skin. And you're like, it does not feel natural at all when they say those things. And I was sitting there like, oh, there's a I mean, I kind of figured, I assumed this would be like a Nora Roberts, like two adults falling in love, adopting children story based off of like the structure of it. But like, it didn't build it up at all.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
And it's literally so off-putting to have Dominic's perspective, in which he is thinking a lot about how he has to keep things hidden from her, and how they can't trust her, and how she is lying to them, and he is lying to her. And then suddenly he's like, oh, but she's so nice.
But she's so...
And
he
I'm
literally
what
thought...
kind of emotionally stunted are you, really?
No, but he literally thought, he looks at her at one point because she has a shaved head, and he's like, what kind of convict is she? Like, he literally, I think, uses the word convict or something like that, but he literally says something like that.
So dismissive and, kind of brutish and mean about it, and suddenly he likes her. It's like, what? How did this happen anywhere else than in the author's imagination?
I think there could have been something that was a bit more toxic between the two of them, or a little less pure, because it is kind of like by the midpoint, the book's like, these two are soulmates. They're perfect for each other. They would have such a happy life together. And you're like,
Gwen hits it on the head. Gwen hits it on the head. There is no chemistry.
Yeah.
No chemistry. And he was completely obsessed with his ex-wife. Like, seriously. It went so
a man can
too far.
grieve.
Like, she has been there.
It's been
8
like 7 years. It's actually been 9 years. 9 years, because Orly's 9 years. And Orly died, or not Orly died. Orly was
thinks
born
of her
when she
as
died.
if she died 2 months ago. Like, he is still in the acute stage of grief, where he is hallucinating her in order to deal with his everyday life.
I think the book was trying to say something literary about how the island keeps its ghosts.
Yes,
because there are ghosts that will speak to the characters that aren't actually ghosts, but like, they're inside. And there's this whole thing about how a bunch of penguins that died.
I think there is.
So
like a little seed of an idea there, because the island is such a very stagnant place. Like, all of these people are kind of stuck in the same state they were when they came to the island. Like, the kids are behind on their schoolwork. They're super intelligent in certain ways, but really, childish and underdeveloped in other ways. And I think she's trying to say as well that because Dom has not gone anywhere or met anyone or done anything, he has never been able to move past this grief.
You know what would have been nice, actually, on that note? That was literally what I was going to say. I was going to say one of the other messages besides conservation, right, is the idea of ghosts and the haunting of the past version of the world, whether that has to be with your personal history or the world's history. And that's brought up so much, and yet it is completely unexplored. Like, honestly, it keeps, like, there should have been real ghosts, and that is what the author intended. There are ghosts there. It's real. Like, it's real. Okay.
It's real in a metaphorical sense.
No. I think she really doesn't define it. I think it's both real and not real, and you don't know. And you might say, oh, well, isn't that a good job? And I would say maybe in the right circumstance, but not in this one. It's because one of the things that should have really been, like, it keeps telling you that some of the kids, like, for example, Orly and Finn, can literally hear the voices of the dead. And that's really cool and all, and everything. And if they had brought forth a message or something, there was something else I was going to say, and I've lost it now. It was something that Elin was saying.
So,
but go ahead.
I was going to say that Chris M had said, thing is, the book isn't marked as romance at all on Goodreads. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons we're also talking about the romance so much is because it's kind of the only solid thing to latch onto in the book. It's like the most solid plot line.
I wouldn't say that.
It's a big part of the book.
What I would say is the reason we've said it's because it's so awkwardly inserted.
Yeah. But it's
that as well.
An ingredient that doesn't feel like it quite belongs in the story. Like, the story feels like it should be mystery and, found family sort of with an ecology backdrop. And the romance is just that putting cream on the cake. It's too much, and it really stands out with how awkward it progresses, and how everything is so very emotionally anchored, and kind of tied to real life and real things and real events. And then the romance just goes light speed, like suddenly they'll just do anything for each other.
Yes.
And that really contrasts, and it really stands out as weird and inappropriate.
So plot-wise, basically what happens is they spend a lot of time together. They see Raph, it's the slow unveiling of the mystery of what happened to Rowan's husband. And you get some clues that obviously he assaulted in some way Finn, because Finn doesn't live in the house because of something that happened, and it's obviously Hank and her that it happened between. We know that Raph was in love with one of the scientists named Alex, but unfortunately later on...
Bear in mind for a moment here that the book will pick two different positions on whether it's okay to romance minors, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah,
the
for
book
sure.
is like a little weird about that.
Yes. Anyway, Raph and Alex, one of the scientist dudes, fall in love a little bit, and we learn that unfortunately, just like everybody else on this island, Alex has died. Alex hung himself after a really tragic event where he and Raph were going to spend a night in a house, one of the houses there, but it got flooded and it was a stormy night, and he was warned that it was dangerous, but they went anyway. And so Alex, who followed his brother anywhere, his brother comes out to save him, and crush of brother dies in the horrible, tragic collapsing of that house because it's like on stilts near the water. So Alex hangs himself, and that's tragic, and there's that ghost. And then we have a lot of like animal interactions and stuff. And yeah, and so basically that's like really it. And the majority of the book is them like interacting with a few animals, seed bank, and then finally the real big thing that happens is that Rowan's like, I'm suspicious. I would like to go investigate my husband's living quarters again, but this time with luminol, which it shows if blood was there, because she's like, I smelled bleach really heavily. And we do get a small aside scene at the beginning where Dom's like, I need to go clean the blood up, which is wild that he didn't do that beforehand. Whatever, that's neither here nor there.
He didn't think random women were going to be showing up.
I mean, I guess that's fair. So anyway, he cleans it. And so she's like, I want to know if there's any secret stuff going on. So she goes out with Raph, because Raph is like, oh my gosh, whales. I love whales. And he wants to record it because he does like violin playing with whale stuff. And so he goes out, and she takes advantage of going out privately with him. And she's like, oh, I want to go to this place and look for this thing. And so they go, and then, that she sprays the luminol, and she finds all the blood. And she thinks that for a brief amount of time, although it's never really fully like explained to you, that she comes to this conclusion that it was actually like, maybe she doesn't think this at first, but later on she's like, oh, it's not my husband's blood, it's somebody else's blood that
she
died.
Thinks it's her husband's blood, and she finds a spot down on the beach where someone has dug. So she obsessively like steals a shovel and starts digging, like with her broken body, like really aching. And Dom figuring out that, oh, she believes she has seen because his son tells him what they were doing in the cabin. And he's like, oh, I understand what she must have concluded from this, and I see what she's doing. So he shows up and he's like, here, help me. Let me help you dig. So they dig up a body.
And instead of just telling her,
yeah,
it's more dramatic this way. This is that thing where they're like, Captain, we have a problem. And he's like, what's the problem? And they're like, you got to come to engineering. And it's
yes.
like, it's a cut in movie, but in real time, he spent 20 minutes getting there.
I
just tell him over the fucking phone.
I
kind of get it, because if
would she
I
believe
thought
him?
someone had killed, if I thought someone had killed my husband and buried him, and he's like, no, it's some other dude, I would want to see it with my own eyes.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's
more
being really
dramatic
stupid melodramatic that he just doesn't say anything, and he just digs, and she can find it all out by itself. Whereas,
and this goes back to what we were talking about how
like,
he's
it's not what you think, Rowan. Here, let me help you. Let me show you.
And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, him not being a very eloquent or articulate character in his actual interactions. Like, there's a kind of way to read this character as, like, he doesn't say a lot. He thinks actions are more important, and that's why he shows her. But that doesn't gel with how he is in his actual point of view.
Wait, pause. Look what Pink Synthetic said. It shows blood. Yeah, is there with UV light. It also reacts to bleach, which means the whole place would have blown up with light.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember well enough to quite remember. The other big thing that's happening is that there is some kind of a cement rot in the seed.
We didn't say the grave is actually Alex's grave. They dug Alex's grave. And there's two other graves. Yeah, it's Alex's brother and the Niger, which is the medical officer who died in the horrible thing. And so they're all, and she's like, who is this? And he's like, his name was Alex. And, like all that stuff. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so one of the big plot lines is that the seed burrow place is going to break before the seed bank is going to break before Relief gets there to ship out the seeds. So they're going to have to try to fix it.
It's been affected by concrete cancer.
Yeah, and it's not going to last, and they try to fix it, but they're going to have to pick even fewer seeds, and so that's part of one of the things they're doing. So one of the things about the structure of this book is that it's really like 3 or 4 plot lines. So there's romance one. There's kind of a thriller-esque aspect of like, oh, what happened to her husband? What happened on this island? And then there's random environmental things. And then there's her kind of bonding with the kids. And part of the problem with it is, at this point, we're like a third of the way through the book, and we think, okay, the thriller part is done. Because the book will then act like for the next third to almost the end of the book, the thriller part is done. And so if you were hooked by that, you're like, why are we here? This is where the romance section kicks off more. And so you're like, it feels like a bit of a bait and switch. Like, we came for this.
It does.
And also the other problem is that the environmental stuff just never is not really much of a plot line. It never really adds up to anything particularly emotionally satisfying. Because, like, they're trying to get these seeds out in time, and it's treated like this is the most important thing. And you're like, okay, but I'm having trouble feeling invested in this fight to get the seeds out.
I'll have to say, I really, really cared about those seeds.
Okay.
I'm like, the
that
seeds.
Makes sense.
What's going to happen to the seeds and the seeds? And
yes.
I felt, for me, that was the interesting part of the book. I did not care for this mystery. It was going to be something dumb anyway. Like, who cares what the nasty men get up to? Like, please save these seeds. I feel like time is running out. I feel like we are right on the brink of losing this chance.
Ellen,
when we get
how many Hoyas would you say that you have?
How can you do this to me, Will? Last time I counted, I had like 200 Hoyas. But
so she may be a little biased here.
No, but I think the author is really good at really pressing down on how vicarious life can be, and how once a species is lost, it can be lost forever. And that is why we have these seed banks. That is why there are people working around the clock to take care of these and protect these seeds for the future.
But it doesn't line up, because then we would have had more manpower. See, that's the hiccup there.
Absolutely.
And also,
but I cared about the seeds.
Yes, and Orly does do. Orly's chapters are mostly exclusively focused on like cute little
giving
monologues.
Us facts. Giving us kid hyper-specific obsessed facts about seeds.
Yeah, which is actually helpful for building the passion and caring in people.
It's completely unrealistic for him to be 9 years old and this intelligent on this specific topic, unless he is like in the 0.3% of people who are just too smart for their own brains. But it's
that being
really
said,
an excuse for the author to talk to you about why these seeds matter.
I think it's trying to also give you a sense of the wonder of plants seen through his eyes, which I cannot sympathize with, but I understand that others,
I see it.
I think this book actually would work better as a post-apocalypse story, where the rest is gone. These really are maybe the last seeds in existence.
Thank you, William. Okay, real quick.
The stakes are higher.
This is going to be my conclusion, is that I think instead of 5 minutes, as Will said, into the future, this should have been the end of the world. And it should have, because then that type of would have felt
and it would
way
make
more on.
more sense why there's just a single family on a single island,
Yes.
just waiting for the Navy to show up to rescue them.
Exactly. Thank you. That would have made so much more sense. But also, I do want to say the thriller aspect of it, of like what happened to her husband, it is actually quite mysterious. It is actually quite engaging in some places. But the thing is again, in combination with the many other like plot lines that are going on, it just kind of like it takes a back seat in a way that doesn't feel good. Anyway,
So
I'll
one
be
thing
back
is
in 5 minutes. Continue.
Gwen had said this, and it makes a lot of sense. The plots feel sectioned off instead of actually mixing and affecting each other. Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is they don't work with each other to create something that really makes a ton of sense. And we'll get this
we're
more
kind
when we
of
get to
forcing them together. They don't actually build on each other to something bigger. Instead,
And
they
especially-
kind of clash.
They do, and you can kind of square the circle or circle the square. I forget what the expression is. In a like thinking about it later kind of way, but very much in the reading experience, it feels like you're doing too many disparate things, and they're not giving you like I feel more for this, and I understand this, and the emotional conflict is heightened. Like kind of like the thriller and the romance are not playing nice with each other. They're not adding to each other. Either we need the thriller or we need the romance.
They should be antagonists to each other. You should not be able to fall head over heels in love while you're suspecting that this man killed your husband. Unless, because this is what I was thinking for a while, unless your husband was an absolutely horrible person and you are afraid of him, and you are kind of, because at first I thought Rowan was going out to sea because she was trying to escape from something.
Yeah, I did too. I thought there was more. I like your idea that like the father did something wrong, and this is Rowan's story of trying to get the kids out, so to speak. Like that's really what's happening. Because
this is emotionally abusive. It's not okay what you're doing here.
Yeah, I like that better, and we could even keep his viewpoint. I think just a little bit of shifting, and it becomes like a very sympathetic villain.
That would be interesting, because the abusers and the bad guys often think that they're not bad guys. They think they're doing their best. They think they're doing the right thing. So having Dom's perspective and have him be like, I'm just trying to do what's best for my family. I'm just trying to hold on what we've got left after my beloved wife died. Like, I couldn't do anything without her. And now I've done my very best, and look, my kids are fine. And meanwhile, then they're really not fine. Like, they've been living in total isolation their whole lives. And I thought it would be a good arc for Rowan to be like, kids, we're gonna get out of here.
We got to get out of here. I know you like your father, but like it's time. And that would actually fit more the theme of
the whole
sometimes
fist thing as well.
And also, like
he
towards the end of
only
the book,
knows how to talk with his fists.
Yeah, and towards the end of the book, there's like a lot of like, steel pups will just have to learn how to swim. I can't take care of them anymore, and like that would have tied into that theme a little bit better. Yeah. So what happens next is again, these are all kind of like divided a little bit. Like it's hard to remember what one of these leads into the other.
The whales.
I think this,
the whales.
Yes.
There's two sections with whales. One is when they're going out in the boat. Her and Raph are going out in the boat in order to go to the cabin to see. She's got the luminol. She wants to check out what happened to her husband. And on the way back from there, a whale falls on their boat. They see a humpback whale calf, and they're amazed by it. And suddenly the mum shows up, and she does one of those jumps that they do. And she kind of lands right next to their boat and flips their boat over. And for a while, Dom thinks that maybe they were killed. Maybe the whale fell on them. And Rowan and Rafe has this kind of a bonding moment because they thought they were going to die. So they kind of just grab onto each other right before the whale hits the water. And then Rowan makes it back up, and she's like, where is Raph? Where is he? And they're both okay. But this meant a lot to Raph because humpbacks are his unicorns, like his favorite whales that he loves, and they don't always show up. And then later on, after this scene, they found these two whales have stranded on the beach. They beached themselves. And it becomes this whole little sort of, what's it called? Like a mini story, a mini...
A cul-de-sac, because nothing comes of this. No,
Yes,
like a vignette.
No, Will's not wrong though. I was actually going to critique this earlier when I brought up the whole thing of them going to find the luminol, because that's the trip. When they're coming back from the trip of finding the luminol, doing the spray thing and everything, they're like, Raph and her are in like an awkward state because he's like, oh yeah, there's blood. And she's like, where from? And he's like, talk to my dad. And which is like, guys, can't you just fucking communicate? Like, if I were Raph 5 million years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, your husband like literally had a sexual relationship. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Had a relationship with my we'll get into it. Had a relationship with my sister, and then like some craziness happened and he went insane, and so we had to beat him up a little bit. Like, but the point is that the whole mama whale and calf whale thing is supposed to show that pausing and caring about nature, because one of the messages that's very, very silent in this book, one of the next messages in this book that's silent and it hides, and I like, maybe this should have been really the big thesis of the book, because it seems like that's what the author really wanted to say, which is that, like with the seed bank and people and everything, is that preserving the future for humans is not nearly as important as preserving the future for other species, because humans consume and other species are, not as horrible, cancerous creatures. And so this scene is supposed to show that compassion in the family, because the family's like, okay, let's pause and not do the seed stuff, because the seed stuff's for humans, but this is for the calves. And then Dom is also kind of like, well, this is for my kids, and I think this would haunt my kids, so we should help the calf and the mom. And so they spend like a chapter or two of the book like helping these whales back out to sea. And maybe that would have been a really great and moving scene if that concept had been slowly introduced over the course of the book. And I think the author thinks she did that, but it doesn't, as a reader, it doesn't quite come across that way, even though, because she's critiquing that throughout it, but there isn't any character that, you might argue and say, oh, it's Finn who's caring for the animals, or it's Raph who interacts with the animals, but it's not a clear message that shows, oh, let's stop being selfish as humans and start giving to the animals. That does not come across.
I think it's also too short.
This is one way in which the author's other book is a lot more effective, because in that book we have one scientist fighting for this project to reintroduce a group of wolves into Scotland, and the locals being, prejudiced, they're being really afraid, they feel threatened by these wolves, they want them gone, and she kind of has to monitor the wolves. You can feel that sense of she cares so much about these wolves, and she knows just how misunderstood wolves tend to be in connection to humans, because we think of them as these killing monsters that go after your livestock and just kill indiscriminately, and they're like murder machines, whereas she is trying to show that wolves actually contribute a lot to nature where they live. And I think it is much more effective in that novel, because it is seen through the eyes of the person that cares the most about this project, and you see their fight to integrate, to make other people realize that nature and animals and as humans, we tend to view nature as something that exists parallel to us, like this, whereas in nature, everything is connected. Everything is interconnected. Everything is is interacting with each other. And I think that is one thing that the author really wants to make the reader feel with her stories. Like, she wants us to feel touched by nature. And that is one of the things she's trying to do with these whales, because in the first whale scene, she is talking about how the mother whale realizes that what she's about to do, and she tries to avoid the people, and she manages not to land on their boat, so which saves their lives. And then later on the beach, when the whales have beached themselves, there is a question on whether to help them or not. And the base point is that with the seeds, like, humans are always the one to pick their priorities. We're always the ones who pick for everyone else. We pick for nature. We pick for this entire planet. And we always keep our priorities at the main front. So they talk about how the seeds that will be picked are inevitably the ones we think are more necessary. Not these amazing ferns that have existed since dinosaurs walked the earth. But we think that, crops like modern wheat, big wheat,
rice,
lots of flour, good,
corn,
yes,
whatever.
And that is really the choice they make. They make the choice to save these whales because I can't formulate.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying. I think the problem is that what you're talking about is not necessarily as well realized in the book. Like, the theme you're saying is really the reason you can't quite draw it together is because the book doesn't quite draw it together. But you're correct. I think that's a really interesting theme, and I think it is something the book is trying to grasp at.
I'm super invested in this. I wish the book had been a lot more about this vanishing island that is sinking into the sea because of global warming. All these animals who are going to have to relocate, are they going to be able to relocate? All these seeds that are the last of their kind that are being threatened to go under. Like, it's more of a setting for this little romance about family, and I want it to be the story.
Pink Synthetic, right. I think, brought up a really great point. I think the entire whale result and message was the wrong one for the story. It felt like it should have been an acceptance of what nature also is and grieving as a family. Like, so that whole whale scene could have been reconstructed in a way, or re-narrated in a way that focused on a theme that was more thematic for the whole novel. But instead, it does feel like, you're right, Elin, like it's like shoving a whole bunch of other things that she does care about, but she didn't construct this novel for.
So there's also another, there's two reasons it doesn't work, one of which I said quickly, and then Ellen cut me off. Rude. Which is that this whale thing is too short. It should have been longer. There should have been more focus on how much work they put in to get to unbeach these whales. Like, what was the digging like? What was it? Like, that should have been more of a story. And that would have built up more of the weight. And the second thing is that they mentioned that they were able to get the kid out, but it was up to the ocean whether the bigger whale was able to get off, to be unbanked or whatever. And I think it should have been that, no, they get the baby whale off, but the mom whale dies. Like, they can't do anything about that. They don't have power over that. And that would have tied in more to the themes of grief and loss in this series. And I think,
the mother whale dies, they've done all this for nothing because the baby whale is dead.
Exactly, though.
Well, but the baby whale, it could be a little bit older, so it's not totally dead.
No, I mean? No.
But anyone who knows anything about whales know that baby cannot make it by itself.
Okay, but again, I'm saying in the book, they could have changed it so the baby whale is older.
No, but
then it couldn't have been a baby whale.
Correct.
It's a juvenile whale then.
No, it doesn't matter. The point is, though, yes, embrace the grief. Mother Earth is dying, just like Mother Whale is dying. So now we're
the message could have been that we did our best and it was enough.
Yes. Yeah,
that's true.
Have the mother whale die and have the child, like, you don't know what happens. Just like we don't know what's going to happen to us at the end of this novel.
You see it hanging around for a while, just calling for its mum, and then one day it's gone.
Yeah, just like the kids and their mother and the loss. So, like, have it reflected in that moment. But whatever.
And this whole whale thing should not have been an aside. like Pink said,
Correct.
it doesn't really mesh with the other things we have been talking about. It is not posed as an aside, and because of that, it doesn't really add to the story beyond me just really liking whales and being like, yay, save the whales.
And the thing is, like, I did want the whale to be saved, the mama whale,
Don't get me
but
wrong, me too.
emotionally impacting and in terms of the theme of the book, it makes more sense if she doesn't. Okay, the next thing that happens is that, because, by this point,
I think the whole thing with us wanting to save the whale could have been a really interesting comment on how unrewarding science and ecology can be. Like,
Yes.
because it's the same argument as when people want to fight traffickers, but they think traffickers are strangers who abduct kids off the streets. The emotionally rewarding situation, the emotionally rewarding solution was just to try and dig out these whales and save the whales off the beach. Whereas in a scientific viewpoint, going for the seeds would have made a lot more sense. And that itself could also have been a comment on how emotionally destroying, how frustrating it can be to have to make these kind of priorities when you are people who care. Like, she could have made us really care about these whales and then be like, no, we gotta get the seeds.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it also speaks to the ways that, none of us want to see a forest burn, but we're okay paying for high-speed broadband if it, it raises the temperature of the earth just a tiny bit. When we see the whale before us, we want to save it, but we will use the whale oil for our lamps to use extremely outdated.
Also, it would have been great just to have, save the baby, and then the mom is unsavable, and it's like, wow, we don't get anything, which is realistic. We have a kind of more complicated message, but we allow our emotions to power us and to do something that we think is the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, it was actually feeding into our narcissism of what we believe is the right thing to do, but is actually not the right thing to do at all, because then we could have saved more of the other types of seeds beyond wheat and all of that other stuff. So long-term versus short-term versus us versus them. And that, again, that's just a very difficult message to try to convey. But again, this author feels like she's trying to convey those kinds of messages, those complicated messages. But in this book, it's the too many things that issue.
Yeah, it really is. The book has way too many things.
That kind of resolution would have made a lot more sense for the story she was trying to tell. This is one of those points where the mystery and the ecology, they don't interact. They don't heighten each other. They detract from each other. Because what we get instead is the whole mystery of, oh, no, the husband didn't go home off the island. He didn't. Something else happened, and and in the end, the sacrifice of the book, the great sacrifice of the book, is not something that is a comment on global warming. The world is changing. We stand at the risk of losing things that we need in order for the Earth to work and to be survivable for us as a species, just in an intricate way that we can't see directly with our own eyes.
You know that would have been actually really interesting. It's because then you come into the conundrum of the philosophical question of, why am I alive? Am I alive not to have happiness? Versus am I alive to provide a better tomorrow? Which is, I feel both completely. I'm better tomorrow, but at the same time, I'm only going to live once. YOLO is a real thing.
It's also a question the book kind of asks, because one of the things we haven't talked about is that one of the problems with Rowan and her husband is her husband wanted to have kids, and she was like, kids are very carbon intensive. We can't bring kids in. Her real reason is she doesn't want to bring kids into a hopeless world.
Trauma.
But her stated reason is also it's so resource expensive to have kids, that's irresponsible. And so there is like kind of the latent question of what is the point of creating life?
And
like, what is
that's
that
a
life
great
going to
question.
do?
Yeah. Wait. Let me see. What defines happiness? Is it temporary happiness or long-term happiness, as in the satisfaction of knowing your actions have exactly? I feel like that's what the message of the book should have been.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so the next thing that really happens is they're trying to save the seas. They're trying to get them out. And then
Rowan discovers
our thriller plot line suddenly comes back after being missing for like half the book.
Yeah. Guess what, guys? Dom is being super shifty and bit of an asshole after all.
He is. Okay, so can we just say, if I were ever interested in Dom for half a second, this revelation would have ruined any interest I ever had in him. Because I'm like, you cannot trust a man that lies to you to this extent.
I think you guys are being a little...
It's actually worse. It's actually worse than Dom killing. Yeah, it's worse than Dom kill. Like, I hate to say it, but in my opinion, it's worse than Dom killing her husband. Is this, which is...
Well, the thing is, if Dom kills her husband, it's a crime that he needs to keep hidden, so it makes sense he wouldn't necessarily tell her.
Yes!
The problem is that he has been keeping her husband alive in a basement prisoner, and he just didn't tell her.
What he was doing now was picking the easy option for himself,
which is
because
disgusting.
His prerogative was to keep the husband locked up until the boat got there, and he personally wanted to leave him to drown. So for his wishes, it was just convenient to lie to Rowan.
It was sociopathic!
While stringing her along.
It's actually really gross. I was completely, honestly, Dom won me over for 5 seconds. Until you realize that, lo and behold, Hank is actually under the seed bank in a fucking, like, little, like, locker area.
Hannibal Lecter room.
Yeah, that he's like, we're just like, he's the author doesn't spare any expense in telling you that he's well fed. He looks pale because he's been underground. But besides that, he looks well taken care of. And I'm just like, no,
it's like,
screw that shit.
What in the emotional manipulation, author? Like,
your husband is being held captive underneath this bank.
And what the husband did was terrible and gross, and he should be locked up. But for fuck's sake, Dom, just tell her. Just tell her what happened.
It's also especially
essentially
stupid
in jail because he is not safe to have around other people right now.
Which is normal.
Normal,
But
what is not normal is Dom being a fucking sociopath about it and being a shit.
He's like a kidnapper.
I'm so sick of these men being being like huge babies, like not understanding normal things. Like maybe it's bad to lie to a woman that her husband went home. Meanwhile, he's locked in a cage under the ocean and will be left to drown.
As soon as I met her, I would have been like, yo, so your husband not only had a sexual relationship with my daughter underage and was inappropriate, so he cheated on you, but also he then tried to drown her and kill other people. So I have him restrained in this one area. Would you like to visit him? I would have done that from the beginning.
Yeah, and if you can't handle it, if you try to set him free, we're going to lock you up too.
Yes!
Easy.
Yes to all that. Part of the problem is that this makes sense in a I'm outlining the novel kind of way, and then once the novel is written, it doesn't quite match. Because the idea is that Dom did not tell her because he's worried that there's even a slight chance that she would let him out and he could hurt his children again. And he can't allow that, right? But the problem is that's not how it's really written. Dom has a lot of control over her and what's going on in the facility, and it feels like if he wanted to keep her away from doing that, he could do that, like, by a law.
Absolutely.
A, and B, they are so fully, incredibly in love by the midpoint of this book that it feels weird that he doesn't just tell her. And honestly, she will, once she finds this out, think about like saving him for like 5 seconds and then learn that he like did not great stuff with Finn, and then immediately be against him. And it's like, okay, that kind of defangs all of his worry this entire time. If she was just going to so easily believe the absolute worst about her husband, which is accurate in this case. But
yes, science,
which
fantastic.
makes sense.
Dom is a villain.
He is.
But the book thinks he's a hero.
Yes, and it's kind of disgusting. And so, in a way, I'm glad that it ends the way it ends, which is what we're going to talk about shortly, I'm sure. But at the same time, it makes me really angry then, because then the villain wins.
Yeah, and the villain wins not only that he gets to go on living, but the villain wins in that history has rewritten itself, and suddenly he's a good dad. He did the right thing. And it's like, no, that is not what happened.
I think this book suffers from the author liking her characters too much, and that's why we get too many viewpoints, and it's why we get so much time spent on a romance that's pretty middling at best. And then it's not harsh enough on Dom for his actions, which are kind of funky.
I'm so sick of us excusing how men act like babies. Let me just... this is a good time to insert the whole, when Dominic, in his perspective, thinks about how he used to think that his wife was just her body. She was just born to be a mother. She just knew all of these things instinctually. It's like born knowledge. Women are just born knowing these things. They're just
he does correct himself
than men to deal with children. So he just let his wife do all the emotional labor in getting knowledge about how to take care of kids. He was like, I thought she just magically knew these things because she was better than me.
The narration
and
says that.
This, I just didn't have to do anything. If I saw a kid crying and thought that maybe the nappy was full, I'd be like, oh, Claire. And then I'd go have fun instead. But then when she died and I was left with a kid, I realized that I'd been so totally wrong. And now I'm a great dad. I just made my kids help me raise my third kid.
Oh my god, dude, you're killing me. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, like, I knew this subconsciously, I think, but I didn't focus on it at all. But no, Aelin is completely right. He literally has a whole narrative section where he's like, but then the kids just raised him and it was okay. And it's like...
And this is how I grew as a person. And I'm like, no!
And also, I really need to take care of my kids a lot and keep them with me always. And it's like, maybe is there a little bit of a selfishness there?
He's kind of doing that by being a drill sergeant and isolating them on a remote island. And I'm like...
I think the thing is, I think that would all be really interesting to explore as like a character arc, but the book kind of doesn't want to really acknowledge how much of a problem that is. The thing is, there's also a theme throughout the book, or a recurring element, I should say, of parentalization, where Rowan was parentalized at a young age to the point where, we haven't mentioned this, but her brother drowned because she wasn't watching him for 5 minutes. The Dom, I think, kind of comes off as he was parentalized at a young age, and his children. Go ahead.
Because of this, because of what happened to Rowan and the emotional responsibility she had to bear, because her little brother drowned while they were living on a houseboat, and he drowned while she was watching over them. She was 13, and her parents had just abandoned them on that boat. Like, she was expected to watch over and to raise her 3 siblings, and one of them ended up drowning. Because of this backstory, it just makes absolutely no sense that in any universe she would think Dominic is attractive. Like, he should just be triggering her trauma all over the place.
Let's also, Chris M says, these kids have no childhood and aren't taken care of properly. Raph is really behind, and they're spending all their day doing chores for their dad's caretaker job. Also, let's bear in mind that 2 out of his 3 children are sexually taken advantage of in this novel, and he seems to have been okay with one of them and not okay with the other. But but like, he's not doing that great by them. But yeah, that is actually, we should go into that. So what happened is that her husband had been kind of going insane towards the end in terms of like being very doomer, like he was going to try to throw all the seeds into the ocean, because if you can only save half of them, like, what's the point? And he had been in a relationship with Finn, who was like 16 at the time. Not appropriate.
He had been
like
emotionally manipulating and sexually abusing her. Let's call it what it is.
Well, to be clear, she is like, it is not entirely non-consensual, but she is not old enough to give consent.
That is not what I said. I said emotionally manipulating
I know,
and sexually abusing.
To talk. I was going to continue to talk for a moment to say that, yes, she mentions that she consented, but she is not old enough to consent, and it's pretty clear that it was not a good time for her, and that he has been, I don't even necessarily, if I would say grooming, but like a little bit. We just don't get a lot of information
can happen
about.
At the same time. A person can consent, and emotional abuse and sexual abuse can still be present at the same time. These are not opposites.
I'm not saying they are.
No,
I'm literally just clarifying. No, look, I don't like him. He's not a good dude. Okay, all right, thank you.
That are happening.
Thank you.
Because you are being awfully muddy about it.
I am not being muddy. He was doing a bad thing. He was, again, she is not old enough to give consent. She can't consent. That's just what's... Mom and Dad are fighting. I know, Katie. No, again, it's just to be clear about what's going on there. Anyway, and
even if
the book
she had been 18, it would have been abuse.
Well, and that's the thing that's interesting, because the book doesn't seem to think that's what happened with Raph and Alex. Alex, who like explicitly in his point of view was like, I'm gonna wait till he turns 17, because then my inappropriate thoughts about him will be appropriate.
And that is actually interesting, because this book finds and portrays Alex as sympathetic, whereas Hank is increasingly less and less sympathetic. And it really is a comment on itself in how one behavior is seen as excused, while the other behavior is like, oh, this man is evil and we have to spiral it up to murder so that no one cares if he drowns. I think there is also this little thing where the gay population in some ways can be more sexist, patriarchal than we are, in that old values like huge age gaps are less frowned upon and more like just dismissed, or like they were gays. So this fully mature person having fantasies and, waiting for this teen to become legal, it's kind of, it's kind of fine. Like, they're cute together, Alex was a good person.
Yeah, it's not something I necessarily feel like I know enough to talk about per se, but there does seem to be a certain trope of young old that's okay in gay fiction. I'm specifically thinking of the one with the peach and Timothy Chalamet. And like it seems to... Okay, go ahead. What's going on?
Please highlight Pink's comment.
I hate Alex. I hate we randomly got a chapter for him. I hate they want to give him a good birthday. I hate it all.
I hate
Me too.
The idea of a dude thinking that, stuff...
Me too.
Like, offering his penis is like...
Yes, correct.
Like, the whole... Every single implication
That's
of
why
that
it didn't show you the
just
sex scene, because it was
wrong.
inappropriate.
I agree. I'm the same way. I thought it was gross. Again, I think there is maybe something to the gay experience that... I don't know if this is something maybe a lot of gay people go through, where they tend to come into their sexuality by finding an older person to guide them through it or not. But this does seem to be somewhat...
I mean, it is just the same.
No, I agree. I don't disagree.
It is...
I'm just trying to be a good ally.
Yeah, but it was so messed up that he thought that giving someone a birthday present was his cock. That is a present to yourself, dude.
That is a present to himself. It is actually... So, okay, wait.
You guys
pause.
are not...
No,
pause.
Let me explain.
I thought when he said that, it meant him making like a pretend little dinner, a nice little dinner. And I thought we were going to get a chapter dedicated to him making it on a Bunsen burner or something, like a little like roast chicken leg or something, and him being like, "Here, honey, like, I haven't ever hit on you before, but let me give you a nice little dinner that I know how to make from my home," or something like that, which he could have just done in the barracks of wherever the fuck they are supposed to be in. And he could have just asked his brother and his brother's partner, "Hey, can we borrow your dorm for a day?" or something, where it could have avoided the tragedy that happens. But instead he's like, "No, I need a secret closet to have sex with my underage boyfriend."
Yeah. I should point out, I do think, for just to give the author a tiny bit of credit, age of consent may be different in Australia.
Yes, it is. Never mind. I also...
Not that I think it makes it less creepy. I still think it's weird. I still think it's even...
This is
even
entirely in the vein of a man giving you sexy underwear on your birthday because he likes seeing you in sexy underwear. It doesn't matter if maybe you think it's nice to wear sexy underwear. If you didn't ask for the sexy underwear or the penis, then him giving you his penis for a birthday present
also
is a present to himself.
Zira has a good point.
That's gonna be the cold open.
His creepy brother obsession was too much. The fact, like, again, this book is about a whole bunch of people that need therapy. Like, honestly,
God,
at the end of the day, which is, it's most books. But, like, that being said, like, it makes sense in the book for that to happen. But upon reflection, you're like, bro... But it also makes but it does make sense why.
I actually don't
mind that. Yeah, that people could be this selfish and that people could act this way, and how they could act this way and in their little brains think that their behavior is okay.
But in this environment, Elin, it makes sense. It's because they're isolated. So it hyperbolizes everything that people already think.
It makes even more sense that Raph would not understand what's going on.
I think it's one of these things where
Alex is doing, because he is from the outside world. He very much knows better.
So the problem, I think, is that maybe the author had this idea, put it to paper, and then was like, shit. I can't say that the gay relationship is pedophilic because that is a harmful stereotype. So I'm gonna say it was great, and it's like, but it's not. It's still kind of weird. Like, and I think maybe that's what happened. Chris M says, I have no idea how old Alex was. Maybe 22 to 23. He was fresh out of college, I think. Yeah, I had gotten the impression, but like, it's still like it's more excusable, but it's not excusable. It still hasn't reached that bar of being. Okay.
It is definitely the way it's presented to us and portrayed in the book that is incredibly problematic. I'm Swedish, and in my country, RAF was legal the whole time, and it's not even a crime. But the way it was presented as Alex thinking about, oh, he's underage and I can't stop picturing his body, and then on his birthday I'm going to give him a nice erect present. That bit was what made it incredibly disgusting. Just
I think,
like Hank and Fenn, even though that was also
I think the other problem is that the way the book seems to think of it as some kind of like doomed romance or something like that. Like, it's very sympathetic to the idea that this was like a very sad thing that happened, whereas like this is actually kind of
poetic souls, and they connected through their music, and it was just the whole
never
thing was
talked
just
about whether they were
portrayed as a
together
doomed
or
romance.
not, because they never talked about whether they were together or not, because they were more than that. Whereas, like, I think if she had just pulled back on that, then that could have been a story of, this is kind of why you don't get children and adults having, like, relationships, because the kid is absolutely shattered when he, in this case, he dies. But, like, if the adult had so much power over him that him dying really shattered this kid, and he isn't quite able to do with it, and he wasn't able to quite understand whether this was a good thing for him or not. Like,
and
I think that could have been explored more.
We could have rectified so much of this if Dom, when he found out, was just horrified.
So Pink Synthetic says, and don't forget, we get the whole bury your gays from the beginning, like Alex is dead, then we find out the history. I actually, and some people in the comments have pointed this out, I actually don't really know what the point of that is besides to, yeah, Pink Said says, Dom, my kids are fine. I'm a good dad. Again, 2 out of his 3 kids were sexually harassed.
He genuinely
and or
thinks
abused.
he's a pretty solid dad too in many instances, which is wild. And if somebody rereads it and they're like, "No, you're wrong, Katie," fair enough, maybe. But like, I still got the impression that he thought he was a pretty cool dad.
Yeah, he does think
Like,
he's a pretty cool dad.
He thought he had faults with Finn, but that was like it.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
true.
but
And like,
it was so much like he's just doing his best, guys. Forgive him already. And he's still in love with his dead wife. Isn't that cute? It's not.
I think the author has one of those problems, and this is just something that I think is increasingly common, where people want to write about problematic characters, but they're also too precious about them. They also still always want to like their character completely, so like they're never really willing to engage with the actions they're having their characters do. And I think just in the court, going back to it, I don't understand what the point of Alex dying is actually in terms of like thematically what it's trying to say. It seems to have just been there so that Raph can be sad.
And
it really does feel like that.
So there was no one else than this family on the island.
It does feel like that, and that is kind of the reason that Bury Your Gaze is such a problem. Is because it is just there for straight people to be isn't it tragic, the gays?
If anything, the author could have left Alex alive as one of the few people alive who lives with the family. And Alex could have been a supportive piece to Raph, and they could have been in love and had a whole life together. Like, if we wanted to make it wholesome. And we could have made it where Alex is like, I can't talk about it because it's really not my drama. But that being said, I think you should talk. Like, you could have had Alex alive, but instead...
He could have been a devil's advocating it, like, feeding it Ro a little bit, because he morally disagrees with this hiding thing and thinks it's gross. And that could have been a vehicle for her to slowly find her way towards her husband as well.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, long story short, what we end up learning, as we've already kind of said, if that's okay with you both, is that we learn that, of course, Hank has been holed up beneath the seed bank. Rowan figures this out and is like, doesn't immediately let him go, which is wild because the way she's portrayed when she finds him, she's like shocked and she's like, oh, they're all disgusting. And it's like, bro, why didn't you let him loose then? And it doesn't make any sense. And I want everyone to know this is the last...
But they hear Dom coming, and they want to release Hank when Dom isn't aware of it, so that Hank can
that doesn't make
get
any
away
sense.
and hide. I know, but...
Not really in the time constraint that they're within. Like, she could have just left the door unlocked, literally, and just left, and then he could have literally just got out. Like, there was no issue with that. They could have attacked
Dom together. Like, for all she knows, he's a fucking psycho.
Yes, exactly. So the point is there are reasons why she could have allowed him to escape, but she didn't. And that's just, and I want everybody to know this isn't the last literal, because I remember looking at the time block and I was like, I want to get to the end of this. My God, I'm so over this. I'm so done. I'm angry that she's going to backtrack several chapters of character development to think that her husband is like a normal person that's being imprisoned. And I was sick of it. This is at 44 minutes and some odd seconds of book left where she finds her husband like this. And that's absurd to me. But whatever. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But the point is that she discovers it. That happens. She confronts Dom. She's like, if you don't let him go in this, like, he's going to drown to death. And he's like, yeah, but I can't let him go because then my daughter will be in danger. And it's like, bro, the whole island is sinking. You can't tell me you can't just let this dude wild in the wild and just go back home with your daughter and be like, excuse me. That's how badly I was trying to monologue.
Okay, Dom gives me indigestion too.
Yeah, fair, thank you. And so anyway, it just couldn't be like, yeah, like, good luck, kid, to Hank, and just gone home to his daughter and been like, kid, stay inside with me while this random psychopath is out in the environmentals. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that they, Hank and Rowan have a moment where Rowan's like, if you're gonna allow him to drown, we're over. And Hank is like, not Hank, excuse me. Dominic is like, well, I care more about my daughter than anything, so nah, bruh. And so they go away, but then at some point Dom is like, oh, I can't let this weigh on my soul. I guess I gotta go back. And so at some point they go back. But meanwhile, Orly has been like, oh yeah, like, I'm gonna go with you. No, I'm gonna go with you to go back home. Doesn't matter who. The point is Orly is like, no, I'm gonna save my old friend Hank, which we have not been given any emotional weight to.
Did we already skimp the part, or I wasn't paying attention for a second, where Rowan talks to Finn about what happened to her?
We haven't actually, plot-wise, we haven't gotten there
happened yet.
Okay, I was going to say, because that happens before this whole thing where she tells...
No.
Yes.
No, Rowan finds her husband alive before she finds out.
Right, but
about
in terms of talking to Dom about leaving him to be dead or not.
No, that happened. Oh, wait, yeah, I guess, maybe.
Right, so basically what happened is she went back and she, for a night, was like, oh no, I'm going to have to... I can't believe it, the man I love, blah, blah, blah. And then Finn is having, like, a real bad period, and she goes in to talk to her. And
then Finn says, like, oh, yeah, your husband, like, had a relationship with me. And she doesn't know that he tried to kill her yet. But she's like, oh, that's horrible. My piece of shit husband, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, but
immediately is like, oh, she was a child. It was not okay. My husband is crazy and gone. And I was
I'm 100% ready to accept this into my soul, into my body. I knew it all along. I knew what Hank was, which is also why
44 minutes to the end of the novel.
With finding him, and also been thinking a lot about how I can't just jump into this new life with Dom and his family because I'm technically married still, and that means a lot to me.
All of this is just dumb.
She literally says, I don't know where me and Hank are going, but I'm not done with us. And the moment she finds out that he's had an affair with an underage girl,
she's like I'm done with him.
Sexually. Yeah, and she also just like...
She also believes us even after she's seen him in a cage. So, like, I would be like, okay, maybe, like, what's going on here exactly? You know what I mean?
I would be curious. I'd be scared that somebody's manipulating something in me.
And also, like, the correct reaction to this information is like, yeah, fuck that guy. But that's also not the honest reaction a lot of people would have. A lot of people would be like, well, okay, that sounds very bad, but maybe let's figure out a little bit more about it, or like have a moment of hesitation. No, she's all in the, oh, that totally makes sense for my husband, and he was a narcissist
like he
all
could
along.
Almost drown and I wouldn't care. That's literally what her attitude is.
We've gotten little hints that he wasn't a very nice person with the whole thing.
He's a narcissist and stuff like that, but that point being said, it's just not all of this
as a normal person, it makes no sense to do this complete 180.
It just, the thing is it's not well written is the problem. This, again, 44 minutes to the end of the plot and you're trying to wrap up all this emotional drama, it's just not going to work out. And so I knew that as soon as I saw the 44-minute mark and I was given that, like, extrapolation, and I was like, oh, okay, let's see what happens. And so, long story short, everything I already said, and except for, like, Dom's like, no, I can't let this man die. And so Orly, meanwhile, was just like, I need to save my friend, which we didn't even know that they were that well of friends, but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, I need to save my friend because he truly cares about these seeds, and only he will truly care to pick the seeds that are the most rare, that are the most special, and not the seeds that are the most useful. And he was doing all this work, and we can't let him die because of that, sort of.
Not just that, but also, like, apparently, which is really creepy to me, apparently, Hank said to Orly, "You're my only true friend," and I'm like, "Oh, that is grooming."
Yeah. And this whole time, Dom has been thinking like, "Oh, I let that man have so much alone time with my children, but I'm such a good dad."
Yes. Anyway, the point is that Orly goes down to try to save him, and then of course adults in this fucking book, Hank is just like, "Oh yeah, no problem, kid. Even though the flooding should be obvious where we're at, I'm gonna lock you in this room because for 5 seconds they're like, oh, but Hank didn't know that it was going underwater, and that's from Orly's perspective, and you're like, no." He probably knew. But the point is that Hank was like, "Oh, your dad will come get you, kid," and then locks him in the room, and Orly's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
And so, long story short, Rowan swims down one direction to go help Orly. And then from this like air shaft, his father is trying to unhinge the thing, but it's instead of being rusted, it's like literally like been welded shut.
Wait.
And so, yeah.
Look what Chris said.
And
Yeah, I just saw that. Chris M says, no. Orly goes to save him because Rowan manipulates him by hinting that anything left under the vault will die.
oh, that fair enough. Yeah, that does
Yeah,
get brought
I
up,
think that does happen.
actually. That does get brought up. I remember that quote.
It ties into the grooming, though, and thinking of Hank as a friend who has just kind of lost his mind, but he was really trying to do good before that.
Yeah. My God. Anyway, fair point. But anyway, and I'm slowly but surely learning this is all just about adult abuse to children. But
The thing is, there really is a kind of recurring element, again, of the parentalization, the way that
Yeah.
parents... I had not realized my skin looked so sallow and dark. Sorry, guys. I know I'm usually luminous.
maybe it's on purpose.
In like
maybe-
an old brown potato.
First of all, that was a little racist right there. But
Banana
secondly,
left out for 2 weeks.
Anyway, long story short, what
I
happens
thought we weren't going
in
to talk
the
about my
story-
penis this stream.
What happens in this story is that Rowan is with Orly and they go up the shaft, but it's flooding, and Dom is trying to open it, and he ends up saving Orly. But for some reason, even though it doesn't really make sense not thematically, excuse me, time-wise in the book, it doesn't actually make sense why Rowan dies, in my opinion. I don't think it was well portrayed. But the point is Rowan starts going down the shaft drowning, and she's caught by the ghost of the wife of Dom. And like at first I thought that was just like a nice like you're gonna live moment, but no, Rowan fucking dies, and that's the end of the book basically. And then they all get rescued by the Navy, and they go off, and Hank died
In the
too.
Navy.
Trying to,
I guess the message of the book was that 2 women managed to escape Dom into death.
Somebody pointed out that earlier in here, I didn't do it because it was spoilers, that the mama whale had to live because she's the only female in the book besides Finn. She's the only mother in the book that gets to survive because the other 2
We
are
can't
dead.
preach all the women too. God.
Yeah. So, the thing is, this is just not a... There are parts of this book that do work, and she is a talented writer. But I think on the whole, this book just does not come together in a way that's satisfying. So I think there are ways that you could, or things you could like about this book. I happen to like none of them, and so them not coming together, it was just worse even.
Yeah.
And so it was disappointing. It was very disappointing because... And this also goes back to length a little bit, which I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, but like the fact that this book is kind of short is good. This book is more of a I'm not really ever going to think of it again versus, oh my God, I fucking hate this book, because if this was twice the length, I would hate it. And if this was a short story, I probably would have loved it.
Yeah, no, if this were literally almost, I wouldn't even say all the same things. It's because there are things, again, I think there's an important message here that the author's negating in a weird way by not, because it doesn't feel like she meant to do it. And maybe if she did, that's super cool. But like, not really, because it doesn't feel honed, which is the idea of those of the elder generation abusing the younger generation, which would fit in with the whole like, conservation message. Those in the past didn't think of those in the future, and that would be a great like mirroring of what's happening to these children, because they are, I'm sorry, but they are all being abused, and it just like it doesn't really feel like the author meant to do that, maybe totally. And
Only
it
the
feels
whale was not
weirdly
abused.
Wait, what?
Only the whale was not abused. Yeah, it's so messy. It's so messy. All right, final thoughts.
It's incredibly messy. I really thought the author would have taken her last stunning novel and just kind of increased her skill and become more efficient in blending her themes into a plot. because that was my one criticism of her other book as well, that the mystery element could have meshed nicer with the conservation element. And instead, we did a complete regression into the territory that Will so much likes to call, where an author begins to write fan fiction about her own characters.
Yeah.
And it just leads to a very unfulfilling book that at least was short.
I would agree. It's very unfulfilling. When I finished and Rowan died, I was like, I didn't know where this was going, because for a long time, you really didn't think Rowan was going to end up with anything and that she was just going to leave and this was going to end on them separating ways. And then it was like, no, like, we're going to all go back to my land and rebuild from that fire that we spoke of. And then that doesn't happen. Instead, she just dies tragically
and I
in
felt
this thing.
so cheated.
It felt very cheap in the way she died. I felt cheated in my emotional... It didn't feel like, there are books and there are movies and there are shows where my favorite characters die horrible deaths. Like, I hate to say this, and maybe people will hate me for this if they like this book, but Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe having his neck popped by Thanos was still more thematically appropriate in that moment than any of the deaths in this book. And that's crazy, because it wasn't that great. And yeah, it still works better than this. And so oh, Elin, ready yourself. This was more of a hardship to read and waste my time on than the Stardust thing in the Whatever King.
What?
Oh.
It was.
Wait.
It was, because the other book was a huge waste of my time, but this upset me genuinely because there was so much good in it and it felt squandered. Whereas the other was just, from the beginning, I went in with low expectation.
Yeah. The
and
other
I was
one,
like, whatever.
The other one is a turd with little flecks of gold in it. And this one looked like a piece of gold, and then it turned out that the inside was just turd.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the difference between seeing a really crappy looking cake and realizing, oh wait, the cake actually is kind of yummy, versus looking at a crappy cake and eating like, whatever. That was not right. But the point is like,
Close.
There was a certain level, like, I didn't even read a synopsis of this book, but beginning, the narration's so good. So guys, if you like this book, or if you're interested in some of the things, you maybe should read, what's the wolf book called?
Once There Were Wolves. Go read that instead.
I'd actually be curious to read it at some point.
Completely put you off this author, because it works so much better, and because there is a single person narrating it as well, it's short and to the point.
Yeah, again, I would actually be kind of curious about reading it at some point, because it does sound good, and I always am kind of curious how authors' ability matches to the story in particular, kind of like what we did with Sabatahir and All My Rage. But then also... Yeah.
And unlike in this one, the mystery isn't that, oh, some people committed suicide. There's actually a murder mystery in that one.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, because part of the problem with this is that it wants to be a thriller for, like, the beginning and the end, and then the middle portion, it's real flaccid.
There were some really beautiful bits where we felt it in our souls. And then it was just completely mishandled, and everyone's abused, and Dom is a terrible father.
Yeah, so maybe we can read that book and compare, because an author is allowed. Like, I think obviously, it's better that an author has some hits and some misses than all misses. So the fact that she had a hit is really interesting, because guys, her narration's not bad at all. Like, it's good narration. The technicalities of the writing is all there. It's just the composition of the story doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It doesn't come together.
No, it doesn't.
So, okay, all right. Thank you all for joining us, our parasocial darlings.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.